Peace at any price is definitely appeasement. Yeah, that's absolutely right. What I would say is that she was observing in the first couple of months of this administration some inexplicable decisions coming out of Washington to vote with the Russians and the Belarusians and the North Koreans in the UN, opposing a resolution that would condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That's inexplicable. So I can understand why she was making that. The only thing I would say is what, Chloe, you and I just talked about. That is, I think since then, recently, there's been a shift, or there is a shift happening.
Reflecting really on the meetings yesterday, we know that the talks were probably around 2 hours, weren't they, between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations. What do you make of it? I mean, clearly no Putin, no Zelensky. What are your reflections on the significance of those meetings?
Well, Chloe, first of all, Zelensky was there. Zelensky was in Turkey. He was ready to meet. But you're absolutely right. No Putin. That was the big message. You remember, I remember, we all remember that this was his idea. This is Putin's idea. He was reacting to a strong message from the British, French, German, Polish leaders in coordination with President Trump to put serious sanctions on Russia if Putin didn't come to the table and negotiate on a ceasefire. And he wanted to change that. He wanted to divert that. He wanted to avert that. And so his idea was to get together in Turkey on Thursday. And so Zelensky said, fine, I'll meet you there. I'll be there. So Zelensky was there. That said, in answer to your basic question, what does this all show? This shows the Russians are not interested in negotiating. They're not interested in peace. They're not interested in a ceasefire. It's been clear. This just kind of reinforced that conclusion.
There was, of course, the announcement of the prisoner swap, 1,000 on either side, which is significant.
It's significant. It's the largest such prisoner swap. It's not the first. They've been doing these for the last 3 years, prisoner swaps between the Russians and the Ukrainians. So we know that there are contacts and that they have been able to do these swaps previously. As you say, this is significant because it's 1,000 for 1,000. That's a big number. That's the largest number of any individual swap. But yes, that was a good thing. There's no doubt about that.
You talk about President Putin not being serious about peace and taking this seriously. Do you think Putin is playing Trump?
Yes, absolutely. I do. I think he is. He's trying to delay. He's trying to make it seem as if he's willing to negotiate. He's demonstrated he's not. And again, the Europeans, together with the Americans, have said, look, get serious about these negotiations or we'll put sanctions on. Now's the time for sanctions.
Our listeners often get in touch saying, why have we not sanctioned Russia to the hilt? So there are no more sanctions that can be put in place already. Why are we this far into the war and we're still threatening sanctions?
The reason we're threatening sanctions right now is that there are still sanctions to go.
But why haven't we done it before?
That's a fair question. That's a fair question. But the point is, there are these out there. We haven't put sanctions on some Russian banks. There's still some Russian banks that are not sanctioned. And the sanctions that we have put on have been evaded. We've got this oil price cap, about $60 a barrel. And what the Russians have done is charter what you and I and we have all seen, you've reported this, to be the shadow fleet, a fleet of tankers that are not registered. They don't have transponders. They offload and unload at night, out at sea. The point is they're getting around the sanctions. I mean, the sanctions are on. You're, of course, right, Chloe. But many of the sanctions are being evaded. That can crack that. We can crack down on that as well. And one other thing, by the way, just on sanctions. In the United States, Senator Lindsey Graham, has a bill that has 70 co-sponsors, which means it's bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats. And I got to believe it's coordinated with the White House. 70 co-sponsors on a bill that would put 500% tariffs on goods coming from any nation that buys Russian oil. That's a serious threat. That, together with what the Europeans, the British, French, Germans, Poles, in coordination with the Americans, have said last weekend about putting additional sanctions on that you and I were just talking about, on energy and banks. We can do a lot. And the last thing on this, Chloe, is that the Russian economy is weaker now. The Russian economy is more fragile. It's been damaged. They've focused all of their resources, most of their resources, on the military. And that's left the civilian economy in really bad shape. So the sanctions are a serious threat.
You say that you believe that Putin is playing Trump. Do you think Trump knows that? Is Trump starting to see through it?
I absolutely believe it. I mean, he said so. He said he thinks that Putin is tapping him along. And the vice president has said that the Russians are asking too much. So yes, I do think it's clear that Putin is trying to play President Trump.
So do you think that there is pressure behind the scenes being applied to Putin from the US administration that we're not seeing at the moment?
I'm not sure of that. I don't know that. What I know is there are people in the Treasury Department here in Washington that are putting together a new sanctions package. And there are people at the State Department, and again, here in Washington, who are putting together requests for approval for weapons packages. Now, that's an indication to me that the Trump administration, Treasury, State, are actually taking steps to put pressure on Putin. That's coming. All it takes is a decision right at the top to do it. And if Putin clearly demonstrates, as he has over this week, that he's not there to negotiate, he's not willing to negotiate, he is playing us along, the time for those sanctions is now.
You'll have read, of course, the comments by the former US ambassador to Ukraine, Bridget Brink. After she stood down, she's been quiet about why she did stand down. She's now said that she did it because she disagreed with Trump's foreign policy. I mean, one of her quotes was, "Peace at any price is not peace at all, it's appeasement." Do you think she's right?
Peace at any price is definitely appeasement. Yeah, that's absolutely right. What I would say is that she was observing in the first couple of months of this administration some inexplicable decisions coming out of Washington to vote with the Russians and the Belarusians and the North Koreans in the UN, opposing a resolution that would condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That's inexplicable. So I can understand why she was making that. The only thing I would say is what, Chloe, you and I just talked about. That is, I think since then, recently, there's been a shift, or there is a shift happening, where it's becoming clear to this administration that the previous work of being, easy on the Russians or being cooperative with the Russians, like voting with them in the UN, is not working. And the shift is toward Ukraine. The classic photo in the Vatican of President Trump and President Zelensky, face to face, no one's around them, no aides, no vice presidents, no special envoys. They're just there talking. And since then, there's been a shift. And I think that's what we're observing now.
Do you think that there will come a point where Trump runs out of patience with Putin and applies all this pressure? Or do you think because it's Putin, and he has said in the past he respects him, and clearly he's a very powerful man, do you think instead Trump will actually say, "I'm losing interest, actually. I'm just going to walk away. You sort it out yourselves"?
They said that earlier, a couple of weeks ago. There were some lines coming out about walking away. I don't think so. We haven't heard that lately. If anything, we've seen both President Trump and Secretary of State Rubio, focus on this issue. I talk to the administration people a lot, and they tell me that from inside the administration, the issue, the challenge of the Russian invasion of Ukraine is the top foreign policy priority for this administration. I really don't think they're going to walk away from that. President Trump, as candidate Trump, was talking about this. He was going to solve it right away. You remember all this. It turns out it's pretty hard to solve, but he's not walking away. I think that he's going to continue. Even in the comments about, well, I'm going to get together with President Putin over the last couple of days, he said that doesn't suggest to me that he's walking away.
Thank you so much for staying up late to talk to me. I'm so grateful to you.
Thank you, Chloe. Good to talk to you.